This as U.S. officials tell CNN that a cruise missile launched by the Houthis last night came within 1 mile of a U.S. warship in the Red Sea before that was shot down, the closest call yet. Let's bring in Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz of Florida and Republican Congressman Mike Lawler of New York. They wrote a bipartisan letter to President Biden demanding that he implement more sanctions on Iran, specifically targeting its oil trade, which the congressmen say provides, quote, a crucial lifeline to sustain and expand Tehran's sponsorship of terrorist groups, unquote. Congressman Lawler, let me start with you. Today, the U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned 3 foreign entities and 1 individual that provide critical financial support to the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, as well as the Hezbollah financial network. You two say you want the administration to deliver a hammer blow to these Iranian-backed proxies. Congressman Lawler, does this move go far enough?
Well, it's certainly a good step, Jake, but Jared and I introduced the SHIP Act last year and passed it through the House in the aftermath of the October 7th terrorist attack. And what it would do is implement secondary sanctions on the purchase of Iranian petroleum. The illicit Iranian petroleum sales, the oil trade, is what is fueling the funding of terrorism in the Middle East right now. Iran is the greatest state sponsor of terror. They use the proceeds from this oil trade to fund Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and others, including the terrorist attack that took the lives of 3 service members this past weekend. We need to act. The Senate needs to pass this legislation. The White House needs to sign it, because if we are to stop and combat the terrorism that is occurring, we need to start with the funding source, and that is the illicit oil trade with Iranian petroleum.
Congressman Moskowitz, sanctions aside, we are all still waiting to see how the Biden administration will respond militarily to that attack that killed 3 U.S. soldiers and wounded at least 41 others. What sort of response do you want to see? We had John Bolton on the show a few minutes ago, and he said he thinks there should be a military strike in Iran.
Well, look, obviously my heart goes out to the families of our brave U.S. soldiers who lost their lives and the families of those that are injured. I mean, there's a score of injured servicemen and women over at that base. Listen, I think diplomacy is important. I think diplomatic actions are important. I think we should be denying the Iranian regime access to the UN. We should be denying their visas. That's a diplomatic action. And I think sanctions are important. I think what Representative Lawler and I are working on is more economic sanctions, and there's a lot more we can do economically, but it's not enough. I do think there needs to be a hammer blow to the proxies. I agree with John Kirby that it should be at a point of our choosing. I also believe it should be sustained. It shouldn't be one sort of target that we take out. It should be a multitude of targets, and we should be eliminating the proxies' capabilities. In fact, it should be such a blow to the proxies that we don't have to deal with them anymore because they have no capabilities. And Iran should see what it looks like to continue to mess with the United States. They've not seen that in a while. We might need to remind people the capabilities of the United States. And we should do that with the proxies. We shouldn't strike Iran proper. I don't think we are there. That would be playing into the hands of China and Russia, by the way, who would love for us to get bogged down again in the Middle East and turn our attention away from Ukraine and Taiwan. But we cannot let this stand anymore. I think the president's going to make the right decision on this.
Speaking of Ukraine and Taiwan, aid to those 2 countries, or 1 country and 1 territory, is on the line right now when it comes to this border deal that Senate Republicans have been trying to negotiate. Congressman Lawler, House Republicans are signaling they're going to kill this compromise coming from the Senate. Take a listen to what House Speaker Johnson said earlier today.
We should be asking what kind of enforcement authority kicks in at 5,000 illegal crossings a day. The number should be 0. 0. Anything higher is simply surrender. Anything higher than 0 is surrendering our border, surrendering our sovereignty and our security.
There's never been 0, even when Donald Trump was president and had pretty harsh border measures. The number's never been 0. But B, Congressman Lawler, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, the independent from Arizona, who's part of the 3-senator team writing the bill, says his description's not accurate. Langford says that as well. She says the bill triggers a required shutting down of the border if there are 5,000 encounters, not admissions. And even then, those who are encountered are not automatically allowed to stay, and on and on. Are you on board with the House Republican conference walking away from this compromise?
Well, first of all, Jake, nobody's actually seen the final details. And I think that it is necessary for everyone to actually see the details before making a definitive statement on it. My objective is threefold: secure the border, stop this massive influx of not only migrants, but human trafficking, drug trafficking. In 2022, 70,000 Americans lost their lives to fentanyl overdose, much of the fentanyl coming across our southern border. We have to secure the border. What the Speaker is saying, and the point he is making, is, yes, it's never been zero, but we have to enforce our laws. This administration has failed miserably in its responsibility to secure the border. Since Joe Biden took office, nearly 10 million migrants have crossed our southern border, many of them illegally. 90% of them are released into our country. Catch and release must stop as the official policy of this administration. Remain in Mexico should be reinstated. So there is a lot of work ahead. I am curious to see if the Senate can actually pass a deal. House Republicans passed H.R. 2 back in May of last year. We went through a long process. We negotiated that bill in our House. The Senate has yet to actually produce a product. Yes, they are negotiating. Yes, they are working through it. But let's see them actually pass a bill and then negotiate with the House. That is how this works. It is not just the House accepts what the Senate does. We have to negotiate. We should negotiate, and we should get a final bill to secure our border.
Yeah, but the Speaker said no. Before you just said you haven't seen the legislation. The Speaker's describing it and saying it's dead on arrival.
Well, with all due respect, Jake, with all due respect, you haven't seen the bill. And interestingly, over the last few weeks, the media has been trying to pressure everyone to agree to a deal that hasn't actually been produced. Why don't we see what the final bill is, and then let's see if they pass it, and then we negotiate. The bottom line is we have to secure the border. President Biden and the Biden administration actually have authority right now to start to enforce our laws, and they're choosing not to, and that is a big part of the problem here.
Yeah, and Jake, by the way, the Speaker said no because Donald Trump said no. The Speaker is Donald Trump's no boy, okay, on this subject. Look, I'll give Republicans credit for a second. They have been highlighting the border for a long time, okay, and we were late to start addressing it. But now that we want to address it, now that we want to lower the amount of fentanyl coming in, now that we want to deal with non-documented folks, now we want to deal with supposed terrorists potentially coming into the country, now the Republicans, controlled by one man, are saying, no, we need this for the next 10 months. We need more of it, in fact, for the next 10 months so that we can use it in election. Both things are true here. This is why people hate Washington. Both things are true. The Biden administration and Democrats were slow. But now that we're here at the table, Republicans are like, no, let's walk away.
The question is, what is in the actual bill?
So
nobody has actually seen the bill.
The bill is dead. Donald Trump has said the bill is dead. The bill's dead.
The question to
but
me is,
as Congressman Moskowitz just said, both can be true. Both can be true.
Well,
we haven't seen the bill.
For me, Jake, for me, it's very simple. We have a responsibility to secure the border. Congressman Moskowitz is 100% correct that House Republicans have been focused on this for a very long time. Senate Democrats chose not to do anything. Chuck Schumer, despite the fact that New York was being inundated, despite the fact that Eric Adams said it was destroying New York City, chose not to do anything until we said that we weren't going to pass the supplemental without border security. That is where we are. Invited back. We need to negotiate a bill.
Thanks, Jake.
You two are invited back. Congressman Mike Lawler and Jared Moskowitz of New York and Florida, Republican and Democrat. Thanks so much.